Hey, what's going on, everyone? I've got an update for you guys on the tropics today. So we are talking about Hurricane Lee. Still, as Lee is only days away from landfall here on the northeast, especially out here in Maine and Nova Scotia. But that wind field that we have with Lee is really going to be big enough to support hurricane force winds all the way out towards the Cape Cod region. So I'll be talking about all these tropical cyclones out here and all these impacts that we are going to see. All right. So starting off here, looking at the wide view of the Atlantic, we've got Lee right here. It is a Category 1 hurricane right now, but it still has minimum central pressure at around 957 millibars. So that really is not usual for a Category 1 hurricane. That usually is a Category 3 hurricane. But that just means that Lee, those winds aren't as strong, but you still have a lot of rainfall, and it's definitely whipping up some pretty big waves out there. But you have movement pretty much just due north at 14 miles an hour. This is expected to start curving out and then go into the coastline, impacting Maine right here. So it's a little bit of a weird track. So we could have some minor changes that could bring impacts farther west or impacts farther east. We really don't know, but that's pretty much what we've got for the most part. Then we also do have another concerning tropical wave behind all of this. We also have Hurricane Margot, a Category 1 hurricane as well. But we've got Invest 97 out. This is a tropical wave that's moving off the coast of Africa. Actually, it's pretty well off the coast of Africa, but it's right here. All right, it's got a high 90% chance of tropical development throughout the next 48 hours and the next 7 days. All right. So once we get a tropical depression, which we will get a tropical depression out of this at least, I think we could get another storm that could it could be a wild card for impacting the eastern U.S. But I personally think it will go out to sea. But I think this will be a pretty big hurricane as we get into next week. So we'll continue watching Invest 97L and we'll continue watching Hurricane Lee. So switching things now to this is our satellite loop of Hurricane Lee. Our eye is definitely not there anymore. You don't really see much going on with this. All right, the convection has definitely slowed down here. And put out the first frame here. There you can see there's still some convection out here, but I think once we repeat that cycle of rotation, that first rotation cycle, I think that's when we're gonna probably be at minimum Category 1 status, which we pretty much are at now. But this is what we've got going on. The rest of the storm, it's dealing with some minor shear out here on the western side of things, but other than that, it's just a big storm that's expanding. Bermuda's right here, though. It's you guys are feeling the outer bands of the system. I would say winds are probably gusting around 50 miles an hour out there, but don't worry, it's not going to make a direct landfall on you guys. You guys will just see some relatively large impacts, other than just the stronger winds, the heavy rainfall, and the large waves. But Lee is expected to move into the northeast very, very soon, at least scrape the coast. But it will most likely be a hurricane as it does that, and then it'll leak into a tropical storm. But again, you can see Lee is pretty much just climbing northward as it weakens slowly out in the western Atlantic. So we look at the latest National Hurricane Center track from Lee. This has shifted a little bit farther east. All right, we saw yesterday the track kind of looking like that. Well, now it's kind of shifted east, farther east. But we can see here, as this is literally directly in line with the Cape Cod region out here in Massachusetts coastline and New Hampshire and stuff. You guys will see a hurricane status at around 8 a.m. Saturday. So you're pretty much waking up on Saturday around breakfast time, and you have definitely most likely tropical storm force winds out there, but you could definitely get some gusts over 70 miles an hour. You have tropical storm warnings up for all the way up and down the Massachusetts coastline, including Cape Cod, and this little hook. I don't know what you would call it, but this region out here in the coastal regions of Massachusetts. All right, and so that's shade in blue again. It's a tropical storm warning. All right, we go in the yellow here. This goes all the way up and down from Maine, central Maine, down the coast, down towards this island right by eastern Long Island. You have tropical storm watches. I would say if you're in that tropical storm watch, you're certainly close enough to the storm to be able to receive most likely weak tropical storm force sustained winds and then gusts that could get over maybe 50, 55 miles an hour. For the rest of you guys, I doubt that you'll get major impacts, but gusty winds for the entire region for sure. Extending all the way out towards Vermont, central New Hampshire, central Maine, down towards New Jersey, Long Island. All of you guys will definitely get some gusty winds, but I think the rainfall for the most part is going to be along the extreme coast. I think it's really like the northern parts of the Northeast, except it's the coastline. All right, but you'll start to see it. You'll probably start getting some stronger winds at around Friday. So tomorrow, late tomorrow night is when this thing will probably start bringing some major impacts. But you can see it goes right into Nova Scotia and Maine. You have tropical hurricane watches that go out for the eastern coast of Maine. This goes all the way down towards Nova Scotia right here on the southeastern coast. All right, and then outlining that, you have a tropical storm watch. All right, so we're expecting this to be a tropical storm as we get to this point here in Nova Scotia, but we still have hurricane watches. So you could definitely abruptly see still some lingering hurricane force winds out there for sure, especially out here in extreme eastern Maine and southeastern Nova Scotia. But this will continue as a tropical storm all the way towards Newfoundland. So you guys are here in northern Newfoundland, and then also parts of Atlantic Canada will also see some impacts. So it's very weird here to see this. It's just a massive area. We go down from here, in line with the Carolinas, and then this goes all the way up towards Newfoundland and Atlantic Canada. So I would say the northern part of Newfoundland, but our track this goes out about 4 or 5 days. This is where our cone of uncertainty is, so we are not sure exactly where this will go. But for now, it's looking like the general direction will be pretty much like that. All right, so we'll be moving on to our NAM 3CAM model now for the eastern U.S. We just want to look at when how strong the storm will look when it makes landfall here. All right, so we'll go towards, let's go to Friday. All right, so we're getting into 5 a.m. Friday. So we're waking up tomorrow morning. All right, this is bearing down on Nova Scotia and Maine, but you guys out here in the coastline will definitely get the first initial impacts before the main impacts will be delivered to Nova Scotia and Maine. But when will the rain start? Well, that is a question that most of you are probably going to be asking me in the comments here. I would say if you're in Nova Scotia, southern, or specifically southeastern Nova Scotia, I think you could start getting some substantial rainfall probably around 4 or 5 p.m. So around the dinner time area, Eastern time, I think you could start getting one of those rain bands. But this is still a 958 pretty large hurricane still moving in your direction. So you're in a pretty dangerous situation here. But it's starting to take a jump west, all right? That's definitely going to bring some impacts closer into the coastline. I would say around 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Friday, you'll start getting some stronger winds, and you'll start getting some, the heavier rainfall out there on the Massachusetts coastline. Then here you go. It's taking that jump west, and you can see, look at this on Cape Cod. There's a lot of rainfall. A lot of rain is falling here. All right, we'll switch it to the northeast to get a better look at things here. All right, and you can see those outer bands, these rainfall bands, they're making their way in probably as soon as 3 a.m., 2 a.m. So this is going to be around the middle of the night when you're going to see that heavier rainfall move in. These are strong thunderstorms that could have a severe weather threat embedded with them. All right, so you've really got to make sure that you're watching that. But then this just continues plowing right into the coastline. A lot of Maine is going to be included in this big wind field, but this thing is getting torn apart here. You can see the entire eastern side is pretty much left open, so the storm is cut in half. All right, this thing hasn't even made a direct landfall. This is still just scraping across the coast. Just remember that. All right, but you realize it's done moving west, it's trying to move north again, and those outer bands really reaching into Maine, all the way up into southeastern Atlantic Canada. All right, and that eye wall will probably, well, I wouldn't say there would be an eye wall, but that central, that's the center of the storm, it makes a landfall right finally on eastern Maine, extreme eastern Maine. All right, and you still feel some impacts out here in Nova Scotia. All right, I think you guys in Nova Scotia will get the larger impacts on the first wave of the storm. You get those first initial rain bands, and you're expecting more because the storm is rotating. So you're expecting another round of rain bands to move in midday Saturday. But again, the eastern side is cut in half. So I really think that you should be done with those, very extreme impacts, I would say, pretty much as soon as 10, 11 a.m. on Saturday. All right. So pretty much by noon, it will still be raining most likely, but I think those winds will start calming down a little bit. But those winds will be the long lasting impact towards you guys, and those winds will certainly be at least high tropical storm force. If not, we'll see hurricane force winds out on Nova Scotia. All right. Now the storm moves through, and it's a 971 millibar, most likely tropical storm at this point, and then it just skedaddles and moves out towards Atlantic Canada and Newfoundland. Yes. All right. So we look at now the rainfall totals. So you probably are wondering how much rain could fall here with the storm. I feel like whenever you get hurricane, your first initial thought is how strong it is with those winds and stuff. Then you're thinking like, oh no, we're gonna get a drenching here. But it's not too bad. I would say this is certainly not the worst case scenario. The heavier rainfall, it's well out to sea here. The most rainfall, the highest rainfall totals will be out here in eastern Maine. This goes into Atlantic Canada, and then a lot of eastern Newfoundland, all in that 2 to 4 inch range here. But closer to home here, across the Cape Cod region of Massachusetts, you have 1 to 2 inches for your current forecast. This includes Nantucket. Nantucket, I think, is that how you say it? I apologize if I'm not correcting that right, but you have Hewlton. I don't know if I'm saying that right either. So if any of you know the names of these cities and towns, just please correct me in the comments. That would be great. But yeah, I would say for the United States, really at most, if you're in eastern Maine, then expect 2 to 4 inches. But if you're anywhere else, 1 to 2 inches, probably a little less. So if you're in like the Boston area, you should probably expect around, I would say, half an inch to an inch of rain. So not that bad here, but there's certainly going to be a good amount of rain here. I think coastal flooding will be a pretty big deal, especially out here in Maine, because you're going to get some pretty large swells, and so that you could get a pretty big sized storm surge. All right, and also if you look at the storm surge map here, which we will, all right, we'll go now to the storm surge map. You can see that this stretches all the way towards Long Island. This goes into the Long Island Sound here. So this is the border of the United States and Canada. This is Maine up here, all right? All the way up and down the coast of Maine, it's only 1 to 3 inches, all right? Or 3 feet, sorry. So I would say this would be a minor thing, but if it is high tide, if it appears to be high tide when the storm is at its peak intensity across the coast of Maine, I think you'll certainly get coastal flooding. But what my main concern is for the Cape Cod region here. You guys are in Cape Cod Bay, around 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. Provincetown, 2 to 4 inches, and Chatham, I believe that's how you say it. I would say around 2 to 4 inches. I would say that. But then you go down towards the southern coast of Massachusetts near Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, 1 to 3 feet, 2 to 4 feet, pretty much for you guys. Now this goes through Rhode Island, 1 to 3 feet for you guys. Now we go towards Long Island, Montauk Point. All right, you guys should probably expect 1 to 3 inches. We go all the way towards Rockaway Inlet. All right, and this is also, I guess you could include Fire Island, Jones Beach, all of you guys, up to 3 feet, 3 foot storm surge. I know in Jones Beach, it's on the eastern part of Long Island. I think you guys are gonna get some pretty monster waves. All right, so it's not, I wouldn't say it's definitely not going to be a good beach day, but it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel like you have a full on tropical storm other than the rain. All right, because you're still going to have this tropical storm force winds most likely, at least the gusts. I think the winds might be a little bit lower than that, but you will definitely also have some really big waves and some substantial storm surge, but not crazy, not too bad. So again, you're going to have that rainfall along the coast especially, but you're also going to have that storm surge, so that could definitely lead to flash coastal flooding in some areas. So we'll look at our wind forecast here. All right, I'll go back to when the storm makes landfall here. So we're getting into, let's see, we're getting into 8 a.m. Friday. And you're probably not gonna feel those like stronger, like really strong gusts until you're getting it. You're pretty much waking up Friday. So it's really just gonna be the rainfall that makes its way into the coastline early Friday. I think when you wake up on Friday is when you'll start getting those winds. But man, the GFS is really far behind on the placement of the system rather than the NAM. All right. But we're getting into midday on a Friday, or actually, yeah, this is midday Friday, okay? So we're getting into tomorrow, excuse me. I'm losing track of the days here. But we already are seeing, wind gusts that would most likely be at around 50 miles an hour, especially out here in the Cape Cod area. The rest of you guys goes out to Long Island, pretty much, I would say up to 40. But for the rest of the Northeast, you guys will pretty much just have a breezy day. All right, but here we go. We're getting into Saturday. All right, this is 8 p.m. on Friday, and your storm is pretty much almost in line with the Cape Cod area. Here you go in Martha's Vineyard, and these two islands out here. Here you go. You got winds, pretty much just sustained winds at around 40 miles an hour, with gusts reaching most likely to 60. Okay, and this is where you get the major impacts. These are these very strong winds impacting Martha's Vineyard, the coastal regions of Massachusetts. Most likely gusts up to I would say 60 for pretty much. I'll circle the area for you guys, but I would really concerningly say that up and down the coast here in this area here, you could get gusts up to 60. It's really the farther extended you are out to sea, the stronger those impacts and those winds will be. All right, but here we go. These hurricane force winds make landfall on Newfoundland. All right, this is around 8 a.m. So you're waking up on this would be 8 a.m. Saturday. All right, and you have sustained winds, most likely at around 60 to 70 miles an hour. All right, with gusts pushing 90 miles an hour. I would say, actually, no, I wouldn't say 90. I would say around 80, 85. But you're just certainly going to get some very big impacts farther out towards the coast here. All right, and then the storm moves out. But yeah, I really do think though that it's kind of a weird storm. You really expect when these storms get this close to the United States, they usually one would think that they would just go right into them, but it's just the placement of the storm, and then also you have the ridging here that's keeping it off the United States. It's very strange, but you still will have the storm close enough to you guys that along the northeast coastline that you will feel some pretty major impacts. All right, and so I'll give you guys the timing once again for these stronger winds. So the strongest of winds, all right, they're going to be pretty much the middle of the night, Friday into Saturday. All right, now you're waking up Saturday. You still got very strong winds, especially out here in the Cape Cod Bay. Okay, and then Newfoundland for you guys, or actually Nova Scotia, excuse me. You guys in Nova Scotia probably around 8 a.m. Saturday, so you're waking up Saturday and you're getting those stronger winds. And I mean, I'm telling you guys, these are sustained winds just sustained winds at around 60 miles an hour. But when you get a gust of wind, that's most likely going to be at around 70 miles an hour, somewhere around 7:30 to, I would say, around 9:15 in the morning. All right, and then when does the storm come out? It's still 2 p.m. You still got hurricane, I would say, high-end tropical storm force winds out there across much of the region, and the storm finally pulls out at around 2 a.m. Sunday, so the middle of the night, Saturday going into Sunday. All right. So that's it for Lee. We've pretty much covered the impacts as for now, but now we have to switch our gears to Invest 97L. All right. This is going to most likely be our. I don't even know. This will probably be our. I think it was third or fourth hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season. I think it's number 4 actually, but I'm just starting off here looking at our intensity guidance here. This is our model intensity guidance. It's a big graphic where you have all the models spread, a bunch of models spread out on one chart here, and it shows you how strong they predict the storm to be. All right, most of these members take it up to at least Category 1 status. All right, some in which most of them take it up to Category 2 status. There's a few that take it up to Category 3, and there's one that takes it up to Category 4. That's a strong signal. This thing is still a tropical wave, and we're already expecting. I don't even say expecting, but the models are already agreeing on this becoming a pretty large and dangerous hurricane. So we really got to watch this. But you can see that they're pretty much all over the place just because this is so far out. This will tighten up and this will straighten out as we get closer to the storm. Once we get into early next week, that's when we'll get some more information on the storm, and it'll be more clear in terms of how strong the storm is expected to be and where it's going. But we look at this. These are the European ensembles here. We're looking at our tracks here. You can see that so far it's looking like the storm will take a northwesterly track here, but some high pressure ridging could steer it out to sea right here. All right, this is the stationary high that's going to be replacing that trough that's picking up way as we speak. All right, that's what's blocking this from going out to sea. So some of these members take it closer to the East Coast, where if we got to a point, here, and let's say this high pressure moved farther south, all right, then the storm would probably be steered closer to the United States. That's one thing for sure, but it'd probably move like that, all right? It's way too far out to say anything, and I probably shouldn't even be drawing arrows into any landmass here, but I just want to make it clear that this storm will most likely be a fish storm, but I think there will be a small chance that some areas and some pieces of land out here could get hit by a future hurricane here. It's really just way too early to tell. But for now, it's looking most likely that we'll get a fish storm out of this. But man, these members are really showing a substantially strong hurricane with winds at around over 100 miles an hour, especially out here in these purple and pink tracks. All right. So looking at the GFS model for our last part of the update, looking at the wide view of the Atlantic here. So keep an eye on this system here. This is Invest 97L. All right. And so we get a tropical depression already. This is just by tomorrow. I really do think that tomorrow we'll have a tropical depression, but it's really not doing much here until we get to about Monday. We're getting into 8 p.m. Monday. We've got a tropical storm. This will be what was it? Nigel? Yeah, Nigel. This will be tropical storm Nigel. All right. Then we've got a hurricane. Most likely, at around, I really do think this will be a hurricane late Monday night. I think Tuesday morning, though, we'll be certain for having a hurricane on our hands. But let's see how strong this thing gets. We have a 958 millibar, most likely Category 3 hurricane already. And this scenario, this setup here, is not looking good because you got high pressure ridging, which is right here. It's definitely blocking the storm from going out to sea. All right. This is strong enough to have a pretty good wall here. So if let's say this is stationary, okay, meaning that it doesn't usually move around too much. That would steer the storm kind of in this direction here. Okay? But if it's not stationary, which is most likely not going to be, then we can still have some room for the storm to kind of move in different directions. And it's not stationary; it's not sticking around, but it's pretty strong. Okay, and so in a minute we could even look at just the this is just the wide view of the Atlantic, but showing where the high and low pressure is. But you still have that high pressure, still very strong, keeping this from going out to sea. All right, it's not that far away from the United States, but it's not close. Okay. But we still got a hurricane on our hands. This is a 960, probably a Category 2 hurricane. Uh, Anywhere by Friday of next week. And notice that raging, it's completely gone. It's not even there anymore, and it's taken place by this raging out towards Europe. Okay, and so that's just going to allow the storm to do whatever it wants. Not really gonna bother anybody out here in the United States, and it just goes out to sea. All right, that's a pretty good looking scenario that we want to see, but most likely things will change here. But if we get a major change, let's say the GFS starts leaning towards the idea that it wants this to become a hurricane quicker and farther south, then we could see it become steered towards the United States. And that is the worst case scenario, and that's not what we want. Just because we're literally, at that point, we would just be done with Hurricane Lee. All right? But then behind it, the GFS has been consistent with another possible tropical system. All right, this will probably be Invest 98L in the future, but this is very far out. We just have a signal. This is all this is that there is a small signal, a small chance that we could get a future tropical cyclone. But what does the GFS do with it? We'll just see here. All right, it takes it on the southerly track and it starts moving it north. All right, it's really weird here. Look. We're moving pretty much due west, and that abruptly takes a northward turn as it finds a weakness out here in the Atlantic, and it becomes a pretty strong hurricane, taking that same path pretty much as Invest 97 future Hurricane Nigel is right now. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. I apologize for the troubleness of the video, or I wouldn't even say troubles, but just me having some slow mouthing right now. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So we gotta watch out for Lee. It's definitely going to be a pretty strong storm. But we're lucky that it's not expected to make a direct landfall on anybody really. I mean, I guess you could say Nova Scotia, but you gotta watch out for those that coastal flooding. All right, heavy downpours and the very strong winds. Power outages, widespread power outages are likely, especially across the Cape Cod region. You have a lot of coastal Maine, and then Nova Scotia as well. So thank you all for coming to watch, and I'll see you guys in the next video.